Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, I was joined by the franchise tag and Pat's pals, Skye, Pank, as we review Week 12 of the 2025 NFL season. Skye is in praise of one team after their win in Week 12.
But yeah, I was actually really impressed and good for them to, step up in the way that they did, because I think they silenced a lot of doubters.
And I look back at a massive win for the Chiefs over the Colts.
I think it's a mixture of the Colts collapsing and not getting the job done, not getting it over the line, which for me is a big red flag coming into the playoffs for them.
I hope you all enjoy.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am, as ever, your host today, Andy Davis, and we are here to review Week 12 of the 2025 NFL season. And with me, I've got a returning guest, a long overdue returning guest. I think he last came on the show in a live London episode in last year's games. Back on the show today, the guy that I spent 3 or 4 days in Airbnb with in Madrid. It's Skye Pank. Skye, mate, how are you? How are things?
Good to see you, Andy. Thanks for having me on. As you said, long overdue, but it's never, when I mean long overdue in a good way, we catch up enough offline, but always nice to be on the pod. Obviously, always great to see you doing your thing and having all the creds for all the games. Obviously, European season's over now, but we're getting into the nitty gritty, aren't we? This is it, the business end of the season.
Absolutely. We've got Thanksgiving games coming up in, literally less than 2 days' time when we're recording right now. And yeah, I think when that kind of time of year comes about, you've got the Thanksgiving games, it's business season. You know full well, as a Patriots fan, when it gets that time of the year, the good teams normally turn it on. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time to come up. I'm looking forward very much to be able to watch NFL action on midweek after work, and not at 1 a.m. in the morning. So looking forward to that a lot. And we mentioned European season there. I mean, I touched on it a lot in our previous episodes about my enjoyment of that. And like myself, you also did all the games internationally, bar Rio. You did Dublin, you did London, Berlin, and Madrid. How was your experience? Because I certainly had a blast doing it once again, and for my first time doing it outside of the UK, doing international games. How did you find the overall experience?
I think obviously you're like me in being an appreciative person of the history of sport. I think seeing the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, especially for the 06 World Cup final we spoke about, a lot of history, and just the way that it still seems to keep the history, even though it's been renovated. I know the Bernabeu done that as well, but there was something unique about in Berlin. I mean, in Dublin, obviously to see a lot of Irish friends of the Irish crowd with that national anthem even I was emotional. It takes a lot to get me feeling anything other than when the Pats are 10-2. And then Madrid was great as well. I mean, shame we didn't get to meet Zidane, but maybe next year. Well, it might be in Barca, the next one, but he can pop there. Luis Figo might be there. He might be not well received though.
Yeah, I'm not sure who'd be responsible for carrying the pigs' heads if they were to have Figo in the.
I was setting you up for that. I was like, if anyone's going to know the reference, it's going to be you. No, but it was great, and I'm glad you had a good time as well. Like you said, there's something unique internationally in that. I'm not saying that London doesn't embrace the spirit of the international game, because we do it great. But obviously, we've had them since 07. And I think it's nice to see a new city or a new country get it, and they put their little flair and spin on things. So, good for Germany to have another game, and amazing for Spain to have their first, as well as Ireland.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in a way as well. I mean, I found it just as cheap to go to Madrid than it was to go to London with the cost of hotels and all that. So I think there's definitely room for a lot of UK fans to go over there for games, or even just for fans who are from Spain, from Germany, from France, that they're able to go just down their doorstep, to go to a game rather than having to fly. So I think in a way, I think the atmosphere is always be better when it's new. I think I'm sure I wasn't watching NFL back in 2007, but I'm sure when the NFL first came around in 2007, it was just as loud, if not more, in London. And I'm sure if it's the other way around and London hadn't had games and then they suddenly got games after watching it for years, then I think it'd be the same thing. So I think all round is very exciting. We got some new locations next year. You got Melbourne, you've got Paris is due to get a game, and I think there's talk of Edinburgh. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I'm seeing on Twitter. So very exciting times for the NFL, especially for us. Being able to cover NFL internationally, means perfect time to do it, because if we had done it back in 2009, it'd be one game a year and that's it at Wembley. Now you've got three games in London, you've got a game in Dublin, you've got games in Germany, Spain, potentially France, potentially Australia and things like that. So it's very much a good time as an NFL fan, just even as a fan, let alone media, because you get to see all these games and get to see a bit of the world whilst watching NFL action.
I know. It'd be nice if we didn't have torrential rain in Madrid, though. But the Brits, we're renowned for basically making Spain UK 2.0. So it seems like climate change has also done its own thing, bringing the weather. But I think it added a nice element to your Dolphins winning. And maybe the final thing for me on that, it was just nice to see you get to see that first win. I know obviously everyone who follows you would have seen the big, but that's probably, Andy, that's probably the biggest news of the international tour this season. The fact that you've now seen your Dolphins win.
It literally, the result probably means nothing in terms of the season. We're probably not making the playoffs after the wins for the Jags and the Chiefs. The result probably means absolutely nothing in terms of both the team seasons, apart from maybe who they're picking next year in the draft and where you're sort of placed. But for me, it meant everything to see us win, because I've been to games in London, New York, Miami, Cincinnati. I was there for the concussion game for Tua in Cincinnati. Talk about bad luck charm. And I was thinking, I was watching this game next to you, and I was thinking, if we're playing a team that's got their star quarterback injured, their best receiver injured, their best defensive player suspended for punching a player, if we can't get a win against this Commander team who are so badly hurt, I was thinking I'm never going to see us win a game. And I'm sure you probably got to experience the emotional roller coaster of watching a Dolphins game with me, because, I was at one point, I think some point in the fourth quarter, I was resigned to defeat. I was thinking, I'm never going to see us win a game in person. I really thought it was never going to happen. So to see it happen when Riley Patterson got the kick in the Bernabeu, it felt like the stars aligned. You're covering the game, you're covering your team for the first time in the media, you're doing it at an iconic venue like the Bernabeu, and then to see your team win for the first time, it just felt like all the stars aligned for that moment.
No, I'm glad for you. As much as Dolphins aren't in my top 5 most loved teams, but no, it was a cool moment, and like I said, maybe a trend will start now where you go on a winning streak.
Yeah. I think I want to say the first 8 or 9 games I watched Liverpool play, we never conceded a goal. I think it was about 8 or 9 games, the first 8 or 9 I'd seen, and we hadn't lost or even conceded a goal. I think we had 1-0 draw against Fulham, but then we had 3-0 against West Brom, 1-0 against West Brom, 2-0 against West Brom. A lot of West Brom.
West Brom.
5-0 against Birmingham. I saw there was a couple of other games. And then since then, I've only seen us not concede, I think, twice in games. I've seen us, we lost against Palace. That was the first time I've seen us concede a goal 2-1. Then we won 3-1 against Newcastle. We did beat Brighton 2-0, but then we've beaten Wolves, I think 2-0. But then Norwich in the FA Cup, they scored 2 goals. Burnley I saw play a couple of years ago at Anfield. That was, I feel like I've sort of, that streak has sort of happened in that sense. I went from never seeing us concede a goal to seeing us concede in almost every game since. I'm hoping now that I'm going to Dolphins games next, whenever that's going to be, hopefully next year at some point, hopefully in San Fran in February, but that is a really long shot. It may be lucky charm, but at the same time, I still can say I've never seen us win a game in US soil. So there's that task next. I've seen us win a game. Now I've got to see it happen in Miami.
I know. I can't believe I'm about to mock my own team, but streaks are there to be broken. And obviously this week is the throwback to a team of Giants that did that to my Pats, and they're all there for it. I mean, I had a great winning streak of seeing the Patriots win live twice at Wembley, one at MetLife in 2016. That was when Brady became the most winningest quarterback in history. The Chiefs 43-40 game I always tell you about at Gillette Stadium. I was on a roll, and then unfortunately, Mac Jones, whilst we might have beat the Jets like we always do, I saw that awful game against the Cowboys. So all good things must come to an end. But at least, this is the beauty of watching sport live. Saw the Pats and New York Dolphins this year. That was obviously cool for us to win in Miami. And I mean, whilst it's been obviously a tough season for the Dolphins, I think there's at least been some fight to show that there might be some hopeful building blocks. I think Mike McDaniel might be okay. There's still obviously a few question marks on this roster, but it's always nice when a team at least goes down fighting and at least can pull out a win late in the season when there's not much to play for, as opposed to some who just sort of whimper away. Even the Titans. Like, I don't think people expected them this week. I know they lost this week, but they put up a fight. So did the Giants. So the NFL was it's a weird year, but I think it's a good weird. It's probably the most open it's ever been.
I agree. I mean, I think, as I look back at seasons in the past, I think about, there's a graphic that's been, gotten notoriety since. There was a graphic of the AFC NFC Championship previews back in the 2017 season, and they had like a graphic of quarterbacks from each team, and it was Blake Bortles, Case Keenum, Tom Brady, and Nick Foles. I mean, there was a point where you had Eagles never won a Super Bowl, Vikings never won a Super Bowl, the Jags never been in a Super Bowl, and then the Patriots. So I think that was for me a good season in that sense, because obviously the Patriots could have won that Super Bowl, but there was 3 out of 4 teams that were going to be playing potentially for a first Lombardi Trophy, and and I even look back at the FA Cup 2008. It was Barnsley, West Brom, Portsmouth, and Cardiff that were in the semi-finals, and I think as a neutral, if your team's not involved, you want someone new winning it. And I think that's, I think a lot of people have been earmarking Bills Lions as that kind of Super Bowl that would be the best for a neutral, because it's a new winner guaranteed. But for me, I think this season's been great in that sense, is that there isn't a clear favourite. I mean, you obviously got the teams that are stronger than others, and there's obviously the number one seed in each conference, but particularly AFC, I mean, I don't think any team really has been that impressive. I mean, the Broncos, great on defense, poor on offense. Bills can't stop the run. The Chiefs have been poor, but they're slowly getting back into it. The Ravens started 1-5. Bengals were out to Burrow. So the AFC particularly, I think, is wide open. And even the NFC, you've got, Eagles probably the strongest on paper, but then you've got the Rams as well. It's a very open year, and I'm all for it, especially as someone who supports a team, like you've mentioned, that isn't going to make the playoffs most likely. I've got real no horse in the race apart from wanting the AFC East team to lose. So really, for me, it's pretty much an open field. So, I'm loving it.
Yeah, obviously, I think you hit the nail on the head there with the AFC. I think sometimes you say things, and all of us, it sounds like stating the obvious, but the home field will be particularly important. I feel like when teams are that even, and like a lot of teams are having an identity crisis. Even us to a degree, we probably should have beat the Bengals more. I know we'll discuss that. But yeah, it's been a really weird year. And I think now, I know it's easy for everyone to do this when it gets to sort of, between week 11, 12, 13 onward. But the clear favourite, obviously, at the moment, if they're healthy, is the Rams. But as you said, on the AFC side, it's wide open.
I agree. And I will get later on in the episode your Super Bowl matchup prediction, but also your MVP prediction. I know the answers are already, but the audience might not. So, but let's get into week 12, which started off on Thursday night. And it really sort of paved the way for what was a really crucial weekend for the AFC East. I mean, you had the Bills against Texans, which is a win for the Texans, 23-19, and that was followed by your Patriots beating the Cincinnati Bengals by 26-20. I mean, that's opened up massively now. I mean, it's now going to be a 3-win gap between the Bills and the Patriots, which means that, with only a few weeks left, the AFC East could be all but set to be back in the hands of the Patriots for the first time since 2019 season. But for you, Skye, I mean, first of all, Bills Texans. I mean, how impressed are you with this Texans team? Because this Texans team has been struggling all year, and in a weak conference, notoriously. But they're 6-5 now. You know, obviously the Colts are going to be they're only 2 wins behind the Colts. We'll get onto that later on. But the defense was the particular star of the show. I mean, looking at the stats in particular, I mean, the defense for the Texans had 8 sacks, 2 interceptions, and allowed 19 points from a Bills team that, you know, scored 40 odd points against the Buccaneers a week before. So, the Texans team for you, first of all, how impressed have you been with their defense and all season, but just in this game as well? And also, how concerned are you for the Bills, who just seem to be at the moment finding ways to lose games?
Yeah, I think I was quite guilty of doing this thing where I'm the Texans, obviously being in the AFC South. I was like, okay, their defense is good. Obviously, they got standout players like Will Anderson Jr. He was destructive all game, but I was just like, you know, the Bills have just come off a huge win against Tampa Bay, and the way Josh Allen had played. So I look, they were still close to breaking their heart at the end. They had that crazy fourth and whatever it was, 27th, 24, something like that, 4th and 23 or 4th and 27 conversion. But yeah, I was actually really impressed and good for them to, you know, step up in the way that they did, because I think they silenced a lot of doubters. Obviously, CJ Stroud's been hit and miss. So for Davis Mills to come in and, I mean, you'll definitely know, is it a 3-game win streak since he's been in? 2 or 3? They beat the Jags.
That is a good point.
Yeah, but, you know, when there's a lot of talk about backup quarterbacks in the league and who's the best. And you look at someone like Kirk Cousins, all right, he might have been better this week, but in the previous 2 starts or stuff that we saw him in, he looked a shadow of his former self. And for Davis Mills to come in and do that, all right, it might be to a degree game management, but you still got to capitalize on your defense coming up against such a elite offense. So I think I was really impressed with them. You know, other than Will Anderson, everyone's been talking about Kalen Bullock. I think it was the best game of his NFL career statistically. So yeah, nice. And I like D'Amico Ryans as well. I think as well for a head coach it's all well and good being a good head coach when he took over the Texans, they weren't exactly in a promising state, and then things turned around with Stroud. But they're actually overcoming some adversity, and I think that's the real test of a good head coach. And he seems to be leading them in a decent place, and they're still in contention in this division and for a playoff spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that he's made the playoffs in both years, I mean, I know it is an easier division. I think I would pray to be in the AFC South, which we should be geographically, but that's another story. But you know, this Texans team, yeah, they seem to find ways to win. I think that's what makes a good coach. I find it's my thing with Kyle Shanahan as well, that in the regular season he finds ways to win despite all the injuries. And the fact that D'Amico Ryans has got this team winning games with a backup quarterback who is, let's not get it wrong, I mean, he's a backup for a reason. You know, he's not there out of, you know, he's not being there unfairly. He is a backup because he's probably not good enough to be a starter week in, week out. And they've gone out, yeah, they played the Titans, who probably are the worst team in the league this season in terms of performances and stats and scores. And then the Jags are a very hit and miss team, but they're a 7-win team. So, you know, they've beaten 2 teams with 7 wins. They've beaten one of who are my pick for the AFC after week 3. And, you know, and they've got a couple of games next. I mean, they've got the Colts and the Chiefs. If they can even go 1-1 or even 2-0, if they can beat both the Chiefs and the Colts, both on the road, or even just get 1 win, I think that's a big statement. So for me, you know, and then they got the Cardinals and the Raiders. So, you know, the chance there to get at least 2 wins, if not 3. And then looking at, you know, their record being, you know, potentially, you know, 8-7. You know, so this Texans team for me, I think the AFC wildcard race might be where they have to look into. But like we said, they're only 2 wins behind the Colts, so you just never know. You just never know. I think for the Bills, I think why couldn't they have this when we were? There's a couple of years where we were going for the AFC East, and they found ways to win. They're finding ways to lose, which never happened in the years that we were going for the AFC East. So it makes you annoyed that that we couldn't have got it done, but also just how the Bills have been ridiculously poor. I mean, Josh Allen looked really poor in this game. I mean, he took more sacks than Santa in that game. It was crazy. I think for me, the Bills, I thought all year it was destiny to have that final game at Highmark be the AFC Championship. They finally beat the Bills. It may still happen. You never know how the playoffs might go. Because I do think the Colts and Pats might be pretenders, and they're currently the top two teams seeding wise. But there's something not quite right. It hasn't been right since about week 4. I think pretty much since that loss to you guys. Can't think what week that was in the season. But since then, they've looked far from themselves. I mean, they've lost 2 of the last 3 games. And it makes you wonder about. There's a whole thing about the Jalen Waddle sort of trade they tried to make. And first of all, I think it was always going to be bold trying to get one from your biggest rivals. But the fact they sort of scarped over whether it's a 2026 first round or 2027 first round. At the end of the day, who cares whether it's that? It makes a difference to me personally whether it's that year or the year afterwards. You think if they had Waddle on their team, a true number one, that from what I've seen at the Dolphins, very much a team guy, a very unselfish guy, not going to be maybe a troublemaker like Diggs maybe was for the team. You think if they had someone like him as an option to throw to, apart from the likes of the 2 tight end set and Josh Palmer, I mean, that's a massive upgrade there in itself. And I kind of feel like, are they going to regret not getting a number one receiver properly to replace Diggs?
Yeah, I completely agree. And like you said, I mean, Diggs is obviously, even Shane, obviously, well, and I, when we all talk about the Pats with you, a lot of people in New England were skeptical over Stephon Diggs and his attitude, but he's actually sort of killed that whole narrative around him, and good for him. And he was obviously great in Buffalo. But when you look at a guy like Keon Coleman, who's not, I'm not saying that you can do things in the league and get away with stuff, but you've got to earn your stripes in a way, right? That's how even I feel about Garnacho at United. You can walk around acting like a superstar when you're young, but until you've done something, and you can't be missing team meetings. And now it almost looks like, he's not even suited up for the last 2 games. So that's why they've signed Brandon Cooks this evening, cleared waivers and signed him. Obviously know him from his time in New England. Good for him. Great player. But I mean, how much juice has he got left? So yeah, I think you're right. It does really feel like a missed opportunity for the Bills if they don't make the Super Bowl this year, because I mean, Bengals, Joe Burrow got hurt. All right, the Ravens are back in the mix, but Lamar's been injured. The Chiefs, I mean, as good as Mahomes and Kelsey are, it's been the defense really that's got them and kept them in to points. We know the offense might click at some point, but the Bills must be kicking themselves the fact that they are 3 games behind the Patriots. I think so I woke up at halftime of this game and saw the score and got excited and put it on. So it's very silly to not go back to bed at 3 a.m., but this is the life of the UK NFL fan. And in the moment, because they're chasing the game, you don't look at the stats. But the next day I checked, and then the Colts lost to the Chiefs, and they mentioned about Jonathan Taylor having under 20 touches. So they look back at the Bills game, and James Cook only had 19 touches out of 66 offensive plays. And you look at it, and it's like you're getting away from what balances the offense. And I think the Bills are guilty of buying into this whole Josh Allen Superman complex. Yes, he can do it, but it's cost them before, and it will continue to cost them. Just because your quarterback can do everything doesn't mean that you need to lean on him all the time. And like you said perfectly, Andy, either get him a number one to take that pressure away, or just balance it out with a top running back in the league like you have in James Cook. Give him the touches. They could have got back in the game in that way, but I think they become predictable, and that's why the Texans got so much pressure on Allen.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll move on to the Patriots game. A game that I wasn't looking forward to mentioning, if I'm honest. I mean, the Patriots keep winning. I mean, I think back to watching that week 2 game against ourselves, and thinking, at one point thinking, Mike Vrabel could go 0-2 here, not a great start. But he started 1-2, including that win against us, and you've not lost since. And it's been an incredible form. Now, I've said on the podcast throughout this whole time, you've had, what, 2 good opponents all year? I know you've talked on your podcast, Pat's Pals, I'm sure as well as Franchise Tag, about how, you're still beating teams. It's a professional league. And, you are beating easy teams if you take away the Bills and the Bucks, and even the Bucks who had a terrible run of form recently. But you keep winning, and that's all you can ask. That is all you can ask. So, for me, it's frustrating watching his team being back, but I've got to admire the job Mike Vrabel's doing. First year in the role in the Patriots head coach. You've got Drake May, who's balling out. Henderson's come into his own the last 4 weeks, especially. Diggs, you mentioned, then has been. I've heard no trouble really since the boat incident in the off season, and obviously you all know about the 4 kids. But on the pitch, he's been pretty good. I mean, he only had 20 yards in the game against the Bengals, granted, but I think there's been a lot of positives, and I think for you it must be really exciting at the moment because you just keep winning games.
I know. And do you know what? Obviously, your point is valid about the schedule. I just think it's interesting because I saw a graphic the other day, and I don't have it to hand, but there's a lot of who have the Broncos? I mean, all right, they beat the Chiefs, and to be fair, they did beat the Eagles in Philly. I'll give them that. But who have the Colts beat? I think again, this buys into what we were saying earlier, in that it's so open of a year that it doesn't feel like when the Giants made the playoffs with Daniel Jones that one year, and we were all like, the schedule's been kind to them, and a little bit to a degree with the way the Vikings were last year. I just want us to win. From the start of the season, I think I said 11-6, and that we would win a playoff game. Now, at the moment, if we were on the road, I wouldn't want to go into Mile High. I don't think anybody would want to, regardless of. It's very polarizing, the opinion on the Broncos offense, but we know how elite their defense is. But I think for the Pats, like you said, what Vrabel has done is establish a good run defense. We've done very well against elite running backs. Secondary stepped up. I still think there's question marks over the linebackers in terms of depth, but you see what Colton Davis has bought, Marcus Jones coming on another level along with Christian Gonzalez. And then, we probably got a bit cute with the play calling. You mentioned about Travion Henderson trying to mix in Stevenson and Jennings this week. But you would hope come playoff time, you just take the brakes off with Henderson. Let him and Drake May build more rapport. And there's plenty of weapons, young guys on that offense. Demario Douglas, Carl Williams, like you said, Diggs. We've got 2 decent tight ends as well. So, it's an exciting time. But obviously the big concern is, whilst they're not long-term injuries for Wilson and Will Campbell, when we play the Ravens and Bills after the bye, they're probably both not going to be healthy. So it'll be interesting to see how we adapt. Because I know we'll come on to conversations later of MVP, but I think everybody can at least be an opinion that Drake May's in the conversation. Our O-line has not been fantastic. I think he's had to scramble a lot and make plays, which has been a great part of his development. But annoyingly, he's going to have to do that even more now with 2 of his best linemen out.
Yeah, I mean, it's no coincidence that he has his best year after you draft Will Campbell, and I think that you've seen it with Penei Sewell. I kind of feel like, they got Goff, but Goff had 3 wins in his first year. They got Penei Sewell as a result of that, and it all changed for the Lions. And I think that for the Patriots, it isn't a coincidence that they've gone out and got a top lineman, and immediately Drake May has balled out and been much better. So I think for me, O-line has always for me been the most important position on the field, and I'm interested to see how they'll do without Will Campbell, because I think he's been. I think if he wasn't such an what's the word? It's not been such a. It's a unglamorous position. I think if he was a wide receiver having this kind of season, I think you look at it a bit more like, maybe he'd be up for Rookie of the Year. But I don't think a lineman ever wins that award. So interesting to see how they'll do without him. And obviously the Bengals, they were without Jamar Chase in this game. T. Higgins went down with a concussion. Yotavas went out for part of the game as well. But Joe Burrow is back on Thursday. Now, we talked about it a little bit actually we recorded the preview for Week 13 prior to this review of Week 12. And we talked about why they're bringing him back. Why are the Bengals bothering bringing him back? Because they're 3 wins off the AFC North. It's a good chance they aren't going to win that division. And if they feel they got a chance to make the playoffs. But it just seems like why are you rushing him back in a season that's probably not even going to get you in the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't get it at all. I also weirdly, it's going to sound ridiculous, but I would say this to someone the other day before we played them. I didn't want to play Joe Flacco because I've seen him cause us enough problems in those historic Pats Ravens games, and he almost did it again, other than his that error on the pick six. But yeah, I mean, obviously the point of bringing him in was to keep them in contention. But like you said, they're 3 games back. He has Joe Burrow has quite an extensive, now you could say, injury history. Their O-line's still not fantastic. That's been a problem ever since they made the Super Bowl. And yeah, I don't get it. It must be a Zach Taylor wanting to keep his job type situation. But then he can still use this excuse of being like, oh, my star's been injured. But like, yeah, I mean, the defense has been awful. Lou Amarumo's gone over to the Colts and he was a scapegoat, but yet their defense is now, maybe in a lot of people, top 5 in the league. See the way they played against the Chiefs. So, yeah, I just don't really know what's going on in the Bengals organization. And I mean, look, Joe Burrow is obviously going to want to play. He has said that. If you don't play this season, you have to wait till next September, isn't he? But it must be a thing of getting bums on seats and getting fans to buy tickets as well, because, I mean, as likable as Flacco is, when your 3 wins off and your star's back and you don't play him, I think you've sort of accepted you'd be throwing the towel in. So, look, we're saying all of this, mainly me, and they'll probably beat the Ravens on Thanksgiving. So, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned Flacco then. I mean, that might have been his last game as a starter. As an interview he had, I don't know whether it was post game or whether it was previewing the Thanksgiving game against Ravens, but he talked about kind of the year it's been for him, and there's a little bit of a cryptic message which implies that maybe his time's up as an NFL player, which would bring end of a career. That's he's won a Super Bowl. He had that amazing run. So yeah, that might have been it for Joe Flacco. That might have been his last game. Moving on to the rest of Sunday, though, we'll go on to our second, which is what caught our eye. So, Skye, we'll go to you first. Which game on Sunday, aside from your own Patriots winning, caught your eye the most on Sunday?
It has to be the Eagles-Cowboys. Has to be for me. I mean, I have a soft spot for the Dallas Cowboys just because I want people to hate me. But after finishing the Gambler and his Cowboys Netflix documentary on Friday with Jerry Jones, there I am. Pats win. I put the game on. And the Eagles go up early and I think, oh no, this is a shame, because the late slate did look a bit underwhelming elsewhere. But the fact that the Cowboys spotted them 21 points, as Schottenheimer joked in his post game. I love watching coaches and how they're all different after the game. And I don't know if you've seen this, but he essentially was like, do you win games in the first quarter? And they were like, no. Do you win them in the second? No. And then he's making a joke and like they're all like heights. It just caught my eye into how much. I know the Cowboys are probably the most scrutinized team in the league in terms of the media spotlight, but they do have some sort of camaraderie about them and have built something up. And to beat, it's not the Eagles of last year, but they are still the defending champs. They're still leading in their division. And a lot of teams would have gone away with a whimper. And I think, credit to the defense for adjusting to the fact that A.J. Brown was getting a lot of targets, more than he has in recent weeks. And credit to Dak and the offense for actually getting it done. And of course, once Brandon Aubrey was in field goal range, I mean, it was automatic for the win, really. So, yeah, that was my standout. And look, again, I know the Cowboys are the Cowboys, but with how open it is this season, I don't think you'd want to go up against that defense now that Williams is there in a D-tackle position. I don't think you'd want to go up against CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens in a wild card or divisional round game.
No. I mean, Lamb for me is a top 5 receiver, but Pickens has been insane this year. Now, it's good. I think when you're the second choice, you do have that luxury of being able to be targeted less, and therefore you're getting more open. But I mean, he had no missed receptions. He had 9 out of 9 receptions, 146 yards, 1 touchdown, and the catches he's making in sort of tight windows and in traffic and getting his feet in bounds. There's been some amazing catches from Pickens this year, amazing yards after catch plays as well. I mean, Pickens has looked way better than he ever did in Pittsburgh. He's been really, really good for me. And I think when you got that 1-2, this is why I said at the start of the year that if you got Pickens and Lamb as your two best, you're going to get less than 6 wins. You're going to win games of that alone. And they're now currently as it stands 5-1. They're not a million miles away from that wild card spot. I haven't got the current playoff picture on me, but I can't imagine they're that far off.
I think they're 2 games off the Patriots. Yeah.
So they're not a million miles away, and I think there's there's issues there, but they've had defensive players come up and make plays in the absence of Micah Parsons. And they've got the Chiefs next. That's tough, and then they've got the Lions. Then you've got the Vikings, the Chargers, the Commanders, and the Giants. There's at least 2 wins there. If the Chargers keep having injury problems, maybe even the last 4 games won. You never know. And on Thanksgiving, they're at home. It's not all over for the Cowboys. I do think they're probably going to miss out. But I think for first year for Schottenheimer, you think about week 1 running the Eagles close. You think about the Packers game taking to overtime. If they can sort out some of their issues they've got, in different areas, I think that they're not a million miles away from making the playoffs again. And I think fair play to Schottenheimer, fair play. But the Eagles, I think they'll be fine. I don't think they'll view that loss and think, okay, the season's done. The fans might think so. They're quite rowdy and quite hostile, but I think that'll have no impact on their season. They'll still win the division. It might mean they're maybe a second seed rather than the first seed or something like that, which may come back to bite them if they get that far and they're the road team in the championship game. But I think still 8-3. I think there's nothing to worry about too much. AJ Brown was getting involved. He hasn't done that all too much this season. So I think, it's just one of those games. But I will say, though, that Saquon Barkley, I don't think has been at all the kind of player. Obviously, it's hard to replicate last season. That's always going to be he's never going to get 2,000 yards again. But the Madden curse is real.
It still exists, the Madden curse. I never thought about that. That's a really good point, mate. With the good old Madden curse. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's good that he hasn't been injured because the Madden curse has done that many a time as well. And he does have an injury history. But yeah, I think like you said with the Eagles, it's not going to affect them too much. And yeah, I know I said about the Cowboys. Like, when I say about teams not wanting to play them, it's more because I think prior to this weekend, or it might still be around, they only have an 8% chance of getting in. But they're just a team. It's at this point of the season now that if you get hot and you get in, it's almost weirdly sometimes more scary than playing a team that's already, that's going to be in there for the last 4 or 5 weeks because they've got nothing to lose and there's sort of like a different pressure or less pressure. But yeah, with the Eagles, they do deal with their own pressure well. But like you said, their fans are very reactive. They never want to lose to the Cowboys. There's a very big rivalry. But they will be fine if they just stick to the way they probably called the first half of this game. I think it was typical Eagles in that when they went up by 2-3 scores, they then went back to sort of like quite conservative play calling. Some weird mistakes as well, like the guy bringing it out of the end zone when he could have let it fall in and there was a fumble. But, I mean, I know Sirianni just won a Super Bowl again, but do you have faith in that coaching staff being able to, I don't know, to take them back to back? Who knows? But like I said, I do still think that NFC Championship game is possible.
Yeah, I agree. And I still think the Eagles would beat, I think, any of the AFC teams in the Super Bowl. I do believe the NFC team wins it no matter what, unless a team comes out of nowhere and flies in and has like a Cinderella story, like the Cowboys, for example. But I think, if it's the Eagles, the Rams, the Lions, on their day, the Buccaneers, I think they beat anyone in the AFC right now, especially on a neutral site. Moving on to the rest of the Sunday slate and my game of the week.
I'm intrigued. I'm ready. What is it?
Well, before we do that, I'm going to go through some of the results. So we saw the Packers get a win over the Vikings by 23-6. The Lions beat the Giants in an overtime thriller by 34-27. The Bears beating the Steelers by 31-28. The Ravens beating the Jets 23-10. The Seahawks beating the Titans 30-24. The Jags beating the Cardinals 27-24. The Browns beating the Raiders 24-10. And the Falcons getting win over the Saints 24-10. And the underwhelming game of the year, the Rams beating the Buccaneers 34-7, which means the game that caught my eye the most was Chiefs against Colts. This game for me, it was so huge for the playoff picture because they made a great point on the show, on the coverage, that if the Chiefs had lost, their playoff chance would be 24%, but if they won, it'd be 54 or something like that. The kind of, if you see the Chiefs now, they're 5-6, but now they're now 6-5. It's such a big difference in kind of for me. It was more than just a win. It was, the Colts were 20-9 up in this game, and they allowed 14 unanswered points in this game from the Chiefs. And I think for me, it wasn't just I think it's a mixture of the Colts collapsing and not getting the job done, not getting it over the line, which for me is a big red flag coming into the playoffs for them. But for the Chiefs, what is a green flag for me is the fact that when the going gets tough, they found a way to win. Which, like I said before, your Patriots did for many years under Tom Brady. How often did they start 5-1? Not often in NFL season. So the Chiefs, for me, I think for me now still have to be one of the favourites to win the AFC, even on the road, because they found a way to win when it mattered. And Mahomes made some crucial plays. And all game long, he was getting slobbered by the Colts defense. He was getting sacked here, tackled there, tackle for loss there. But he found the crucial plays and the crucial moments to get the job done. And I think this, for me, was a damaging result for the Colts, not for the division, but in terms of how they would come up in a big moment, in a big spot. But also the Chiefs, for me, how they're still there. They're still a team to beat. Until someone beats them and takes them off their throne, who can bet against them? And I think we were probably all watching this game really rooting for the Colts, because I think we all wanted what's the term? You wanted the empire to fall down. You wanted that sort of dynasty to end right there. And now it looks like they could be well and truly back. So, Skye, what was your take on the game? Because I thought personally it really lived up to its pre-game betting.
Yeah, it did live up to the hype because it had enough amount of quality defensive play that I think it kept everybody, interested. I don't think there's a single point in there that I disagree with. Daniel Jones, unfortunately, we all like when someone can at least prove that they can play, to a better ability than maybe people give them credit for. But I still think there's a limit in terms of he's not going to win you a Super Bowl. I've said, when me and Shane do Pat's Pals, I'm probably a bit more savage, can be when it's your own team. But if the Colts won the Super Bowl, I'll say it here as well, I probably would stop watching the NFL. That's how confident I am in that Daniel Jones wouldn't get them to that point. And without being harsh to him, I think the Steelers game and this game proved it, because you put the ball in his hands and you take the touches away from Jonathan Taylor, and it sort of falls into the script of a team that does have an elite quarterback. And even though the Chiefs' offense is not clicking, like you said, Andy, when it comes playoff time, you just know suddenly Rashee Rice is going to go for over 100 yards. Travis Kelce is going to go for over 100 yards. And I really do think that, there's something in the air of them playing my Patriots or the Broncos and Mahomes pulling a Brady like he did in Arrowhead a few years back, and almost like coming in and killing that feel-good story. That potential was there for the Chiefs to go far, if not still be a contender in the AFC. And do you know what? I never thought about it until you said it about sort of like the dynasty falling down. But in a way, do we not want them in the playoffs to see them actually lose to someone? Does it not take the magic away? No?
Keep them out. I want someone new. I mean, rather than the Patriots or Bills, don't get me wrong. I would rather, but I want to see the Colts. I want to see the Broncos. I want to see, literally, I want to see something different.
Wouldn't it be great to see Mahomes lose?
No, because I think I do like Mahomes. I just don't like this fact he wins. I do actually like Mahomes as a player, as a person. And let's not get it wrong, if we get to do Super Bowl again, I would love to be able to interview him again like we did last year in New Orleans. I would love that chance. But also, I think just for something different. I don't want to see Chiefs Eagles, certainly. That's one thing I don't want. I at least want someone else in the end. I don't mind who it is in the NFC, as long as it's not the Eagles. But for me, the thought of a Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl again, I don't want it. So yeah, I think
you cancel the flights.
Yeah, no, I don't want it.
I do have a question for you though, because it's I do love picking your brain on things like this in just terms of narratives. If you're the Bills though, you want to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, right? Because they haven't been able to do so. Like, I'm not saying if they won a Super Bowl, it doesn't mean as much by not beating the Chiefs. But we all, especially as like if you're a fan of the Bills, all right, you play them again and think, oh no. But like, especially, the joy that at the moment the Bills would be the home team to play a game there before, like you said, they move stadiums, and if they could finally beat the Chiefs, that could be the catalyst that they need to go on a deep playoff run.
I'm going to put my Liverpool hat on here, and I kind of think, when I'm a fan, back in 2019 or even last season alone, Man City have been a team that have constantly caused me heartache, way more than Man U have, a lot more than Man U have in my life. And for me, it's like when I'm sitting there and seeing, like at the time last year, Nottingham Forest for second, or Arsenal, it's like, I don't want to have that joy of beating City. I just want to win it. I don't care whether it's. And I think as Bills fans, if I was a Bills fan, I would think I don't want the Chiefs anywhere near me. I think we could be playing the best football of our lives, but the Chiefs just have this way of beating us in the postseason. So for me, I think personally, if I was a Bills fan, I would not want the Chiefs. For me, I'd be thinking, as long as we get there, I don't care who we beat. So for me, fair. I think as long as they win, they won't care. And I think if that last game can be reaching the AFC Championship or winning the AFC Championship, I think they won't care whether it's the Bills, or the Broncos, the Chiefs, or the Houston Oilers. It's I don't think they care if it's London Monarchs. To be honest, I think
London Silly Nannies.
What was that?
The London Silly Nannies from Family Guy.
with Pete Griffin as their starting alignment, right?
They don't care who they be, as long as they make it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the Bills fans would just be happy to be there. But I kind of think all teams have these adversities. If you watch a football life, most teams have these adversities. Like they'll have these parts of the season where they go through a poor run of form and then they find a way to get back. So this could be the Bills. The Bills story. They could struggle and then they could find a way to win towards the end of the year. And so there's still a chance that they could win the AFC. But I think from what I've seen, it hasn't been great the last month.
Yeah, I do kind of love how it's going to be so interesting with the two, Bo Nix, Drake May, probably going to be the 1-2 seed in whichever order. I personally like Bo Nix. I think whatever people say about him, when you're clutching a fourth quarter, you can't teach that. People had differences on Eli Manning throughout his whole career, but he had better playoff genes than his brother, and he broke my heart twice. And Bo Nix, seems to slow down for him and simplify in the fourth quarter. So to have two young guys who are going to be in the mix, who are going to probably be, there or thereabout with these teams for a few years, because they've got two very good head coaches running those franchises. But then you've got realistically, probably is going to be Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Mahomes there. It's going to be great to see how it unfolds. And I think any 5 of those teams could represent the AFC. I don't think that anyone from the AFC South will. But yeah, I think other than that, it's so open. I mean, I do love it, but I don't love it because it was nice when Brady and the Patriots used to be there all the time. But hey, we're back in the mix. We're back in the mix.
Absolutely. And that's a good segue into our next segment, our final segment, which is going to be who we think is going to win the AFC, win the NFC, and our MVP picks. Now, we'll go to you because I've sort of given my take on it, but I think mine's changed a little bit since last week. But for you, Skye, who's winning the AFC? and who's winning the NFC?
NFC, I'll play it safe and say the Rams. I think Matt Stafford is playing. It's like I was gonna say it's like watching me play Madden. I was probably good like 4 years ago. You know, he's throwing it on the 1 yard line. We know it's going to Devontae Adams, and he still throws it to Devontae Adams. It's just so easy. It's mad. So if they're healthy, I don't see how they can be beaten. The AFC side, look, I'm probably trying a reverse jinx here. I think as good as Vrabel has done with our defense, and as much as I do think Drake May is better than Bo Nix, I just think that the offenses are similar in terms of talent, but that Broncos defense is so good. And if they get the 1 seed, I reckon we could have a Broncos-Rams Super Bowl. And I said Broncos Bucks as a half joke before the season when Matt Stafford had his injury. So, yeah, I've been quite high on the Broncos all along.
You know what? You mentioned that injury. Like, this is why I had all summer my pick was the Chiefs Rams. All summer long, it was in my head. I'm going to go for the Chiefs Rams when we do our predictions episode before the season starts. And then I'm being told he's got back problems. I thought, okay, maybe it's going to be they're going to make it as a wildcard team and therefore not have the home advantage. I thought, oh, maybe that way they'll lose. But I wish I just stuck to my guns because, yeah, I'm going to go for the Rams as well. I think there's an all-round complete team. And the best thing is they've got a lot of players on rookie deals. So I think that's kind of for the future, even if Stafford does call it a day after this year, and yeah, they might have no quarterback to rely on next year at the moment. But you've got the Braden Frisk, Jared Verse, Kobe Turner, all on rookie deals. You've got Kieran Williams, the same thing. I think Puka, yeah, he's either being paid or about to be paid. You know, it's a young team full of great players. They've got a guy like Stafford who, you know, spoiler alert, is my MVP pick. If I was picking, this is for me a team that is as complete as it can be, and they got one of the best head coaches in the league. For me personally, he's second behind Andy Reid. So I'm going to go for the Rams as well. Now, I had Broncos last week with my pick. I had the Broncos Rams, but from what I was told from the Chiefs in that game against the Colts, I'm going to go for the Chiefs. I think, you know, the one team I think can beat them is the Broncos purely for that mile high advantage, and they've already beaten the season and stuff like that. And I think that defense will carry them a lot. And I think there's definitely shades for me of that sort of 10 years ago, that Manning against Brady AFC Championship, getting the job done with I think personally, a poor quarterback, but a brilliant defense. And I think that's the one team I think I wouldn't back the Bills or the Ravens to beat them purely because of both their defenses. But I think that Broncos defense, I think, you know, alone could beat the Chiefs. I think, yeah, but I think for me personally, I think I still right now, until they're beaten, I can't bet against the Chiefs personally. But for you, Skye, you get an email through your so Sky's the limit email saying, Skye Pank, you've got a vote in the MVP. Who are you picking? Now, I think I know the answer, but for the benefit of the audience, who are you picking as your MVP?
I'm just thinking if I got that email, I'd be like, wow, after 21 years of watching, you finally have blessed me with this honor of an MVP vote. I think I'm going to shock you here.
Oh.
Not shock, but shock. I mean, I cannot pick against Stafford because to now be on 30 touchdowns to 2 picks is insane. I know Drake May is, you know, quite high, maybe second in terms of yards per attempt. There's the rushing element. Like he's taken almost double Stafford sacks. I think he deserves to be up there. But we know that this thing moves week to week. And I think with the way that Stafford just played and the fact that May was shaky against not a great defense, I would give the nod to Stafford at the moment. And also, I don't mean this in terms of narratives. I mean, I do, but I don't. We've seen that how the MVP has gone in a few years, and there's been some weird decisions. Why would you not? You can't deprive a guy at Stafford's age of an MVP, right? The career he's had. I do think if it comes to voters going, Drake May, career ahead of him, Matt Stafford, you're probably going to go to the guy who's in the twilight years of his career. So, yeah, my head and my heart today are both saying Stafford.
I tell you what, if the Rams win the Super Bowl, Matt Stafford wins MVP. I mean, that is. I mean, talk about ending on a high. If he calls it day, I mean, that for me would be the perfect way to end his career. If he can go out and win an MVP award and win the Super Bowl, you know, I don't know whether he's from California, but winning it in, kind of in that stadium, just like Manny did 10 years ago, I think personally that would be the ideal place to end his time, because how can you bet that? How can you bet to an ending than winning an MVP, maybe even Super Bowl MVP as well, and also winning the Super Bowl? I think that personally would be the fairy tale ending, the perfect ending to a career.
Do you know the only reason I know where he grew up?
Because he grew up in Hackney?
No, because recently I was like, what if he moves on to another team?
You mentioned this with Will Gavin in the bar after the Madrid game, didn't you? And was it Atlanta?
No, he's from Dallas.
Dallas. Oh wow.
Yeah. Actually, now you've given me a flash. We won't say how many beers we consume. You're giving me a flashback to me saying to Will Gavin that he should be, if he wins another Super Bowl, he's in the top 10.
Oh my God, the debate you had, yeah, that caused, not even just with Will Gavin, but Will Varney from Tom as well from TalkSport. It caused a bit of a debate, and I definitely think I would love to get you on in the off season to do a top 10 quarterback of all time. I think.
Yeah, me and you, we love a history deep dive. We should do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say, Andy, like how Brady joked with him after one of the games a couple of weeks ago, like, you got another 8 years. We said about, look, Sean McVay's, a few people said about, he made a meal out of the shoulder injury. I don't see why he would. I think the truth is in how underlying is that. If there is no issue, just play on, because he's playing at such a high level. He's playing at a level that Peyton Manning was playing at under the Broncos, the way Brady was playing in 2007. This offense is just rolling. And like you said, a lot of rookie deals on the defense. They could keep Devontae Adams and Nakua. Even guys that only know because of Oregon, Terrence Ferguson is a great pass-catching tight end. He will come on in this postseason, if not next season. The offense and this team is built to win for a few years. If you win a Super Bowl, surely you run it back. But then again, Aaron Donald did the same, and that didn't really go great. So maybe you should take your advice.
Absolutely. But that is a good way to end the show for today. So, Skye, first of all, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, mate. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, hopefully I can't believe I'm going to say this. Hopefully your Dolphins beat the Saints, and hopefully my Pats beat the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, winning against the Saints and the Jets, we could go 6-7. But no, thank you all for watching. And for those who are listening to this podcast or watching it for the first time and thinking, who is this guy? Who is this guy, Pank? Or where can they find you on socials?
They should. Well, I mean, first of all, they're obviously great people because they followed you. So they've got good taste. So I don't know if they want to come over to me, but they can find me on TikTok. Sky's the limit. Sky's the limit 91, showing my age. And then I really need to change my Instagram handle. This is good that we have these conversations, but Skye Lawrence Pank on Instagram. But like yourself, Andy, you can find all the content there. And anyone who tunes in to all of our stuff, obviously we appreciate the support. And again, thank you for having me on. It's been great.
Always good having you on. Always good seeing you again after our escapades in Madrid and our adventures with them. Berlin and everywhere else. And don't forget, Skye does feature in 2 different podcasts, in both Franchise Tag Podcast, which is a podcast that has a lot of friends of the show on our show as well. Freddie Hall, Adam, Gareth, and then of course Pat's Pals, which has you and another friend of the show, Shane Brennan, on the show. We talk all things Patriots. Now I don't normally...
Sorry. The reason is that you don't listen to Pat's Pals.
No, I don't the Patriots stuff, but Pat's pals is the one exception. I because it's you two, I do find a way to to do it. But Cam Newton commented on your video recently, so it's getting some traction now. Cam Newton telling you
the jersey live.
Jersey.
Yeah, that will be next time I'm on here. I'll when we're doing our top 10 quarterbacks of next summer, like we said, I'll have a burnt Cam Newton jersey behind me. But if he watches this, I'll message him and tell him to watch this episode, get you some more traction as well. And if you jumped on that fumble, Cam, maybe you would be in the top.
Oh, God. He's bringing out the beef. Maybe you could burn it on the episode. Maybe that could be the whole. You could call it in person around the campfire and watch a jersey get burnt.
His swag's better than mine, and if he does ever see the fact that I just rinsed him, we'll still say one love, don't hate me. Still a legend of the game. Done more than I've done in the NFL, so yeah.
Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. But that is our Week 12 review with, as ever, your host today, Andy Davis, with our guest today in Skye, Pank. And we'll see you guys for our next episode, which is going to be our Week 13 preview with first-time guest on the show, Kanan and I'll see you then. Take care.